by Riverside.
Welcome to the LeadHERShip Bytes podcast, where we dive into the inspiring stories and wisdom of current and emerging women leaders from diverse backgrounds, industries, and career stages. I am thrilled to introduce our amazing guest today, Dr. Sheila Bailey. Dr. Bailey serves as Executive Director of the Virginia Council of Administrators of Special Education. She has served as an adjunct professor at several institutions, including the Virginia Commonwealth University, Virginia State University, and also the University of Phoenix. She's also made her mark throughout her career as a classroom teacher and an education specialist in various public school systems. I crossed paths with Dr. Bailey through the American Society of Association Executives, where we both sharpened our leadership skills as a part of the organization's Diversity Executive Leadership Program. Some of you have heard me talk about this program before. Dr. Bailey and I are both alum of that program, and her dedication to nurturing leaders is really awe-inspiring. So, Dr. Bailey, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the invitation to be a part of this podcast. Podcasting is a little new to me. When I started out, it wasn't part of the landscape, but I'm excited to say I've done a few, and I'm excited to be here with you today.
We're excited to have you. I have no doubt that you'll be able to shine a lot of light on some leadership principles for our audience. Let's start off with having you walk us through your leadership journey from your time as an educator to your current role as executive director of an association.
The journey started, I would say, when I was a classroom teacher toward the end of my years as a teacher. And I was teaching at Petersburg High School here in Central Virginia. And a few administrators somewhat took me under their wing, and I admired their work. And I decided I would like to be like them. Also, my dad, who was the first African-American representative on the Board of Supervisors in Isle of Wight County in Virginia. He was not a formally educated man. He had gone to high school. He didn't have a college degree, but he valued it very highly, he and my mom. And so they made sure I went to college as the oldest child. And watching him navigate those waters where he had to sit with some people who were college degree people, but it never deterred him. And watching those leaders in Petersburg, just watching them in their devotion and dedication, it really inspired me to do more. I'd gone through, got my bachelor's, got my master's, but I realized that I needed to go into a program that would offer a terminal degree, a doctorate in education. And that's what I did. And it grew from there. It blossomed from that point. I'm a faith-based person, so I say by the grace of God, I am where I am.
I love it. I love that. So what drew you to your current leadership position? What was the thing that resonated with you about this role in particular?
I had gone through the presidential track in the association, and toward the end of my time on the board, the current executive director came to me and she said, I'm getting ready to retire. And I think you may want to give some consideration to my position. I never really thought about that before. I had been public school all my professional career, and I was like, okay, this is going to be a switch. And so interviewed, was selected 8 years ago, and it has been just eye-opening. One of the best things within this opportunity was when I found out about ASAE. I did not know that existed. And when I found out about it, I said, you mean there are more people like me? And yes, I had people throughout the country who were executive directors of state units, but it was interesting to see people who were outside of the educational realm.
Yeah.
And to get an opportunity to interact with them. And I applied and was selected for the DELT program. And I was so overwhelmed and excited. I could barely sleep the night before
The orientation.
just to interact with people and how warm and wonderful and how willing people are to share, which is big for me. That's why I went into working as an adjunct in addition to my work as a student services director, because I wanted people who were coming up like me to have the benefit of talking to someone, a practicing professor, a person who was in the trenches, who understood. And I just enjoyed that. I enjoyed it so much. And it was just another phase of the process, because as they learned from me, I learned from them. And same with going into ASAE and DELT. I approach this not as the wise old sage, with all the answers, but I approach it as the person who, yes, I have some wisdom behind me, but I also get to absorb and interact and meet wonderful people like yourself.
Thank you so much. I think your answer really resonates with me because I felt the same way. Like I've been a member of that organization for a very long time. It's been more than 20 years now. And that's what drew me and what kept me as a member was building that sense of community and people who did the same kind of work that I was doing and who were willing and open to share. So I definitely identify with that a lot. And I'm going to switch gears a little bit and ask you about your transition from the classroom to leading an organization. And if there was anything specific that you did to prepare for that shift in your career.
I tried to always maintain close contact with the current leaders within the orbit of the Council of Administrators of Special Education. And listening, learning, watching from people who had been doing this for a while. The Council for Exceptional Children, looking at what they do and how they did it to help that organization be successful. Specifically, I remember when COVID hit everybody like a ton of bricks, and we had to pivot because the services to the children that we work with in special education, we were still under federal mandates to provide that service. And so the leaders in that field, some were very young. We had a lot of transition. We had to get those people, we had to support them in what they were doing. So it involved being able to watch others and know how to reach out and ask questions and how to pivot really quick. That's the beauty of the work that we do, is because if you're not totally scared off by a challenge, it kind of gets your blood going and gives you a purpose, then I would say this is the work for you, because there's no set playbook. You have to keep that community very close and lean on them and learn from them, and kind of be vulnerable. It's okay to be a little vulnerable and say, hey, I don't know. I need help.
Yeah, that's vulnerability and humility, I would say, is key. So many successful leaders have echoed that point. I learned so much throughout this podcast series, and that has been a consistent theme of things that I've heard from many of the leaders I've spoken with. Um, I have a question about the broader field of education. I was just reading a study the other day that an organization called Chiefs for Change had put out about some of the challenges that the field of education is encountering around retention of teachers, morale, and drawing new voices into the field. As someone who has lot of wisdom behind you in education, I'm very curious about what you think the steps are that our society should be taking right now to support and retain educators while also inspiring the next generation of leaders.
I think right now we have to be very committed to placing value on our educators. It is a tough, challenging job. One of the messages I always carry to the persons that I work with is, what would you want for your own child? If you can leave at the end of the day and say, I did what I would want done for my own, you are truly making a difference. And some people now do express very vocally that they don't feel valued. I think those of us who do value educators need to be very vocal. We need to let everybody know. We have to show up. We have a hill day every year where we go up to the hill to ask for things like funding, support for retention, mental health programs. We need to be very vocal that those things are not negotiable. They are absolutely necessary in order to continue the work that we are doing. When I started undergrad, the education department was the largest on campus. I'm the product of HBCU, Virginia State University, home of the Trojans. And when I walked into the education building, every day it was crowded. There were wall to wall people getting to class, talking. It was just alive. And that changed. It has changed. Our education departments at any university, whether it's a HBCU or any other, it is no longer the bustling environment that it was. And we've got to somehow return. We need diversity in the classroom. We need kids to see others who look like them, who think like them. And I am so concerned that we're losing all of that. I love the fact that our youth today have many options, but I don't want to lose education as an option.
Yeah, that holds some special significance for me because I have siblings who are educators, and in my day job, I work for an association of educators now. So this really is a topic near and dear to my heart. Thank you so much for sharing that. Staying in that same vein around and future leaders, what guidance, if any, would you offer to women who are aspiring? Maybe they're in the classroom now, or maybe they are future leaders in some capacity as they look to advance into a leadership role?
I would say to that person to get yourself as educated as possible. That's not to say that you need to have a doctorate, but you need to educate yourself, make sure you are fully educated in your chosen field, your area. You also need to look for those mentors. They're out there. I've always been happy to mentor others because I had great mentors, and I still have people that I depend on. I had a young lady, and she has a significant role now. I won't call her out, but she has a great position. And she told me she had done an internship with me. She said, I came in fully expecting to observe, and you kind of said, nope, this is what you're going to do. And just kind of tossed on in there and said, get busy. I drew that from an internship I did. I had a very active internship. And I think that that made a difference. And the mentors you select, the people you follow, for the most part, will determine the type of leader that you become. So you have to be really careful when you admire people. Make sure you're admiring them and following them for the right reason. They may drive a nice car, whatever. No, you got to look at that work ethic. You have to look at their sense of outcomes and where they're trying to take their commitment. So if you're blessed enough to find that person or a couple of people that share that vision with you, then yes, grab a hold of them.
I agree 100%. And I'm going to add to that list and say their level of integrity, their character, right? You are so right, because a lot of times we become what we follow. And I like to look at how mentors treat people,
Right.
because that's the kind of leader that I aspire to be, someone who treats people with respect as a leader. So that's great advice. And speaking of great advice, there has been a lot of emphasis in different different workforce circles about, what are skills that need to be developed in the workforce right now, what the future is going to bring us in terms of technology, AI. Like we all keep hearing these themes over and over again. And one of the things that I have seen emerging is a big conversation around the growing importance of developing soft skills, particularly things like strategic thinking and problem solving. I'm really curious about your approach to problem solving in your leadership role. How do you approach that?
Okay. I would say the first thing I do is listen for understanding, not to respond, but to listen to understand. And I've got to mention the Ready Me program at this point, because that program, that's part of what you did before, really helped to laser focus those skills that all of us think that we have, but maybe we need to just fine tune them a little bit sometimes. Critically analyze the difficulty. Don't just assume I know what's going on here. I just need to jump in with the solution and they'll be fine. No, you better listen, because sometimes there are nuances and subtleties and underlying issues that don't emerge. Learn some really good questioning techniques so that you can fully build a good picture of what that problem actually involved and whether or not you're getting the whole story. And if there are multiple people involved in the issue, having the ability to listen to each of those persons and understand. I think those are the skills that really help you to grasp what's going on. The other thing I think I have learned along the way, everything's not a problem. Sometimes things just happen and you need to address it. And then there's some things that are good problems. We have outgrown our hotel that we use for our spring conference 3 times. We're on our 3rd hotel. That's not a bad problem. That's actually a good problem, because we have more people coming that want that information, that want that knowledge. So it was my job to go out and scout around and find new hotels, negotiate contracts. And that's not something I did as a educator, but it's something I do as an association leader. I don't have a big team of people, so I do a lot of this work myself, which is fine. I enjoy it. So don't look at everything as this insurmountable issue. Some things you can look at, okay, this is a fun, good problem to have. Like, I need a bigger hotel. Yes, the food costs and all the other things that go along with it is going to be much more, but the outcome is you can reach more people.
Absolutely. That's really great advice. And I think what you're saying about everything not being a negative problem is really important. It's important to be able to gain that perspective as a leader, whether you're a current leader or you aspire to be. So thank you for that. I'm really curious about whether there is a professional or personal challenge or success that you feel has really shaped you as a leader, and how you think that challenge or success has influenced your approach to leadership.
I'm an oldest child of 4. And as an oldest child of 4, I possess some of the characteristics that people say oldest children possess. And I remember when I was about 35, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. And at 35, you really don't think about mortality. It may not hit you the same way as it would if you were in your 60s. I'll just speak for myself. And one of the great joys I had was I had told my mom before she passed that I wanted to go back to school and to get my doctorate. It was a big deal. I had gotten an acceptance letter in November into the program to start in January. And my mom passed away December 1. And I remember in November being so excited to take that to her and show her, she didn't live to see me graduate, but she did live to know that I had been accepted. And it had a great impact on my journey because I felt like I needed to be that person that my mom believed I was, that my parents believed I was. From that point, it was, what else can I do that's going to make a difference for people that may not have some of the opportunities that I've had along the way? Children with disabilities are near and dear to my heart. My only sister was a person with a disability from birth. And I love the work with individuals with disabilities, with their families. It's very challenging, and we don't have the magic formula that's going to make it okay for everybody. But having a heart, and when you see someone with a disability thrive in whatever it is they choose, whether they decide to open their own business or they just get a nice job at the local fast food restaurant, if whatever they're able to do. That's really the heart of the work that I do. Is now I support people that support individuals.
That is a special role. I think it takes a very special person to be an educator. I definitely admire that. So I am going to just pause for a second and pivot and talk about how, in these changing times, you think that leaders can prioritize joy, how you prioritize joy in your own life.
One of the things that I do is I try to be very honest with myself as to what brings me joy, what brings me peace. Peace is probably at my age a little more important than joy, if I'm gonna be honest with you, because I spent my life working in a field that wasn't very peaceful sometimes. We had to deal with some things. And the persons who are leaders in the field now, I fully understand and grasp the fact that what they deal with may not, it was different than what I dealt with. But I try not to get disconnected to what their needs are. So joy and peace to me work hand in hand in asking yourself and separating the professional and the personal. There are many things in my profession that brought me joy and still bring me a lot of joy. But in my personal life, I try to set aside time. I retired from my full-time job working in education. And if you want to make my children laugh, tell them that I retired. They say, "Mom, you're busier now than you were when you were full-time employed." And that's probably true. But the key to all of this is that level of busy brings me joy. I love working in my church. I love working with and seeing and spending time with my family. I'm very, very blessed to have grandchildren. And a couple weeks ago, a little great grandchild in
Oh,
our world.
congratulations.
Yeah. And those things are very exciting. Children bring joy. And it's an indication that despite all the unrest, divisiveness, hostility, and all the things that if you spend too much time on social media, you think this world is just spiraling out of control. Despite all of that, I'm going to the beach, some time on the beach, baking. I love to bake. Those are things that will bring me joy and sort of re energize so I can come back, hit the ground running, and get back to doing the work that I feel like I have been called to do all my life.
More great advice. More great advice. This has been just a wonderful experience. I'm so glad we had a chance to sit down and talk, and for you to share your insights and wisdom on leadership. And Dr. Bailey, um, what advice in closing would you give to professionals who are maybe contemplating their career path and they want to make a pivot? What advice would you give to them on how to successfully do that as a person who has done that multiple times during your career?
The first thing I would say to them, it's okay to be nervous. It's okay to be a little scared. It's okay to be a little apprehensive, but study and ask questions. I like knowing to the best of my ability where my feet will land. My son, who's military, is airborne, and he just completed his 100th jump. I admire that because that's not something I could do. Jumping out of an airplane, not being sure where my feet will land. But I admire him for being able to do that.
Yeah.
And it's okay if you're that type of person who can look at things and say, I'm okay kind of taking a chance and seeing what happens. But if you're a person like myself, where you kind of want to know, where the landing pad is, just be very inquisitive, ask a lot of questions. But one of the advantages to changing positions is if you can follow a person who did not leave under negative circumstances. Now, it's kind of difficult if it's somebody that left under negative circumstances. It's a little bit difficult. But if you have that privilege to leave for someone who's a voluntary type leaver and they don't mind sharing some insights that would help you as you transition to the next level, then I think that's always a serious advantage. If you are a faith-based person, then obviously you already know what to do, that. and
Yeah.
as I have done for many years. But yes, knowledge and being very, very honest with yourself.
That's sage advice. Dr. Bailey, again, I have enjoyed this conversation with you. And I'd love it if you would share with our listeners how they can connect with you if they would like to follow you, learn more about your journey, follow what you do. What's the best way to stay in touch with you?
Email is a great contact. Sheila, Sheila, Bailey, Bailey, VCASE, V as in Victor, CASE at gmail.com. I'm always open to other conversations because, again, that's how I learn things too.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And listeners, join me in 2 weeks for another episode of Leadership Bites. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a great one.